Welcome to Really American. I am Michael Hayne. I am happy because I know Trumpy Dumpty won't be happy after learning that former fourth-star retired General Larry Ellis, once served under the Bush administration, hasn't endorsed a single president, even when he was under George W. Bush, didn't endorse him. He is coming out and vociferously endorsing Kamala Harris. Ugh. I guess there's Trump's reaction right there. Yes, that awkward moment when Granny leaves Mar-a-Lardo without her wig, makeup, or bra. Yikes. According to ABC News, Larry Ellis, a retired four-star general who served in that rank under George W. Bush's administration, is endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris. This is the first time Ellis, as I mentioned, who served as the commander of U.S. Armed Forces Command, has endorsed a presidential candidate, writing that it is not a decision I take lightly, but one I believe necessary. The general would say, Donald Trump has demonstrated that he is wholly and dangerously unfit for commander-in-chief. You think? He praises and emboldens our enemies that seek to weaken our country. He has denigrated our brave men and women in uniform. Wow. This is very significant because at the moment, Captain Bone Spurs is out there feigning to give a shit about the troops. Maybe he didn't call them suckers and losers this time, but he just recently did a political stunt when he visited Arlington Cemetery and laid a wreath there in honor of the troops that were lost in Afghanistan during the exit. We have to talk about that disastrous exit from Afghanistan. Here with me to elucidate and add a little light on that was former General McMaster. He served in Trump administration, which is weird because he was like competent and, kind of decent. So it was like weird that he was in the Trump administration. Naturally, he didn't last very long. But let's hear what he had to say regarding Trump's disastrous policy with regards to Afghanistan and how it was him who authored, that precipitous withdrawal.
But Trump had his hand on, does Trump bear part of the responsibility for what happened?
Oh, yes. So the whole premise of talking to the Taliban before you leave Afghanistan, why the heck were we even doing that?
He was going to invite them to Camp David.
Right. Even the Obama administration, when they made the mistake of pulling all of our troops out of Iraq in 2010, which really set conditions for the rise of ISIS and so forth by 2014, the Obama administration didn't negotiate with al-Qaeda in Iraq on the way out. And so if we were going to leave, why not just leave? What happened in these series of negotiations and concessions to the Taliban is we kind of threw the Afghans under the bus on the way out.
And they cut the Afghan government out of those negotiations, right?
Absolutely. So that was mistake one. Then forced them to release 5,000 of some of the most heinous people on earth, and then began
the Trump
to
administration
withdraw.
forced the Afghan government to release 5,000 Taliban.
Correct. And then also stopped the active targeting of the Taliban, which President Trump, again to his credit in 2017, had restored because he was convinced, like, how the heck does this make any sense? To give your enemy a timeline for your withdrawal and then say, now I'm going to negotiate a favorable settlement?
So it raises the question.
And not only did Trump, incredulously enough, work to free 5,000 Taliban prisoners, but in fact had one of them over in the White House. As you can see here, he was meeting with then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. I don't know if he wrote this dude love letters, but there doesn't seem to be like a psychotic, sociopathic, tyrannical killer he doesn't want hanging around the White House. Let's listen to a little bit more about what General McMaster had to say.
He says you got to fire everybody who touched this policy. As you write in the book, he touched this policy. He had a lot of hands on it. You write in the book, Trump established the first sound long-term low-cost strategy for Afghanistan and South Asia, but then abandoned that strategy and replicated the Obama policy of negotiating a withdrawal timeline with a terrorist organization, setting the stage for the Biden administration's humiliating retreat from Kabul in August 2021. You were out of the White House at the time that this was done. You write that you, quote, watched with incredulity and revulsion as he directed an envoy to negotiate withdrawal with the Taliban. You would not have advised him to do that.
Absolutely. And I advised him to do quite the opposite of that in the run-up to what was his decision in August of 2017. And I tell that story in detail in the book about how really Trump made a tough decision and made, I think, what was the best available decision. and put into place in 2017 the first sustainable reasoned approach to Afghanistan. The war by that point had not been a 16-year war. It had been a one-year war fought 16 times over. But, Anderson, he couldn't stick with the decision. He didn't stick with the decision. And I think people were in his ear and manipulated him into, with these mantras of, end the endless wars and Afghanistan's a graveyard of empires and so forth. And
so when he is critical of, the Biden administration's withdrawal, which, I guess the Biden administration could have not gone along with the deal that was made. Biden did push back Trump had set a guaranteed withdrawal date, May 1st.
Okay, first of all, Trump can't even locate Canada on a map. Do you think he knows anything at all about Afghanistan? I don't understand. They don't have casinos. Do they have oil? But do go on, McMaster, in describing in great detail how he authored that disastrous withdrawal and, did everything horrible with regards to Afghanistan.
Right. Even the Obama administration, when they made the mistake of pulling all of our troops out of Iraq in 2010, which really set conditions for the rise of ISIS and so forth by 2014, the Obama administration didn't negotiate with al-Qaeda in Iraq on the way out. And so if we were going to leave, why not just leave? What happened in these series of negotiations and concessions to the Taliban is we kind of threw the Afghans under the bus on the way out.
And they cut the Afghan government out of those negotiations, right?
Absolutely. So that was mistake one. Then forced them to release 5,000 of some of the most heinous people on earth, and then began
the Trump
to
administration
withdraw.
forced the Afghan government to release 5,000 Taliban.
Correct. And then also stopped the active targeting of the Taliban, which President Trump, again to his credit in 2017, had restored because he was convinced, how the heck does this make any sense? To give your enemy a timeline for your withdrawal and then say, now I'm going to negotiate a favorable settlement? I mean,
so
now, for those of us with a functioning brain cell, for those of us who can synthesize information, see it for what it is, differentiate fact from fiction, we already knew this. We knew pretty much all of this. However, it's crucial that it's coming up now, that we reiterate it, especially against the contrast of, again, Captain Bone Spurs over here feigning, support for the troops, pretending he gives a flying fuck, and once again trying to distort the withdrawal and everything with regards to Afghanistan. So it's even more important. But what might explain why, over 200, I think it was like 300 Republicans, ones who worked for, with Romney and George Bush and everything, have now come out and supported Kamala Harris, is what McMaster had to say about this with regards to working for Trump and all of his lackeys. Let's hear about that.
The portrait you paint of dysfunction in the White House from a sort of management perspective is pretty alarming. You say Trump pitted people against each other instead of building collaborative teams. You say it was an administration at war with itself. Do you have any reason to believe that if there's another Trump administration, that it would be any different? Because doesn't that tone get set by the commander-in-chief?
Well, as a historian too, Anderson, I realized that was not unprecedented, right? So one of the things that gave me solace as I was in that position was that thinking about the first Reagan administration, how tumultuous that was. And so I knew that this was really nothing new. It happens in all administrations. But in the Trump administration, I think everything was magnified.
So basically, get behind the decent, competent, intelligent, normal, human, non-criminal, likable prosecutor lady. Got it. Well, I am Michael Hayne. This is Really American. If you like our content, hit that subscribe button and check me out on my latest TikTok account at Mike Hayne Comedian. Talk to you later.